What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be installing this E85 sensor and the gauge for the Golf R. Should be a fairly simple and straightforward process from the videos that I've watched and from the help I've gathered from other people, so we'll see if we can install this today. This is what comes inside of this kit. I ordered this off of Amazon. So here's the kit number. It comes with the sensor and the gauge. There is one that comes without the sensor, so make sure, as you can see on here, it says one of the kits doesn't include the flex fuel sensor. So it comes with your instructions, the sensor, here's the gauge itself, wiring. I think this is a programming cable. You get a silver gauge gauge surrounding thing, and then you get a white face as well that you can switch to. But we're probably going to keep it black since the inside of the Golf R is piano black. So that's what comes included in there. Some other stuff that you're going to need on the side are these right here. These are the Dorman 800-085 quick disconnects. I guess these will go on the sensor right here. And then you're going to need these two hose clamps to hold down the fuel lines on the quick disconnects. You're going to need a ATO fuse tap. This is so that the gauge can get power from the fuse tap right next to the under compartment cubby thing. But yeah, once you get those, that's really all you need. Altogether, this and this were $216. These were free. Shout out the guy at Allied Auto. This was $4. So for about $220, you get an ethanol content gauge for your car. That's good if you're going to be running E-blends, especially. We're running E85, so it's not too big of a deal, but I just want to know what percentage of E85 is inside of the car at all times, just to be safe. So the car's been sitting for a little bit. We're not going to work on it right away. I'm just going to let it sit a little more, see if we can clear as much fuel out of those lines as we can until we get this on. But I'm probably going to read up a little more, check up on the wiring, and see how it all goes. So this is the gauge. You have the wiring. So this pin right here connects to the sensor. If you're black for ground, you're red for power. I believe the red just goes inside the fuse tap, and this goes onto any, I believe it's non-switched, so the one that doesn't stay on. You have to put it on a fuse where it'll go on and off with the car. So yeah, that's how it's looking so far. These two that are labeled in and out, you don't have to worry about those, just leave them as is. You can tuck them away. All in all, it should be really cool to get her on and see the content on there. But while we're waiting for the car, I'm going to go ahead and see if we can set up a few things. So from what it looks like, so both of these just slip over like that, and the hoses go on, and then we use the hose clamps to tie them down. So that makes sense. I'm just going to leave these out for now and cap these off so nothing gets inside of them. And yeah, we just got to hang tight until the car is completely cooled off. All of the fuel is kind of depressurized before we start working on here. Once we start, I'll go ahead and start filming again. Big shout out to Jessie for helping me out with this wiring. So I've got the fuse step right here. I removed the 20 amp that was in the lower corner over here, and that's what we're going to be replacing this with. So this just slips in right in its original place, and then we can take this wire and tuck it away to the side for now. Since I have this for the valves, it doesn't allow me to use any of the smaller ATM fuse taps, so that's why I had to go with the ATO one. If you do have any of these slots free, you are able to use the ATM fuse taps. So right now I'm working on the wiring. As you can tell, I have the battery removed out so that I can access the firewall between the engine bay and the cabin. We're going to route this cable right here. So I'm going to feed this end into that grommet so that it can go and reach inside of the cabin so that we can connect the sensor to the gauge. The grommet, if you can feel, is going to be all the way back here behind this black thing. And we're just going to finish feeding the cord into there. Okay, so we're wiring that cable right now. I fit it underneath this and underneath this. We're gonna route it through this little thing right here so that it looks OEM, and it's gonna come into place right over here. So this is kind of how it's gonna sit right here. So the wire is already tucked underneath these. I'm just putting this sensor in place to see how it's gonna sit. I guess how it's gonna be like, and then we'll have the disconnects on there. These fuel hoses may need to be trimmed as well to fit with the disconnects on there. We'll do that in a little bit. As for now, we're gonna finish wiring this through the firewall. So I just finished routing the cable through the firewall. This one is the gauge, this one's for the exhaust, and then this is just the zip tie to seal that hole. So this just goes back into place, and that's where the rubber grommet is, and this just sits like this. Now that this cable is wired in, we're gonna start wiring up the gauge. We're gonna take this black wire, which is the ground, and we're gonna ground it to this screw right here, which is a 10 mil. So take your ratchet and ratchet that off and add the ground onto that screw. It's grounded into that screw, and now let's start hooking everything up. We're gonna take the red cable and then tap it into this fuse right here. So we're gonna start the fuel portion of this. So this is the sensor and the quick disconnects. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that's 1 and that's 2. So both those quick disconnects are on. This sits down at the bottom here, and it'll sit like that. Okay, so we got this set up pretty much. I believe the next step is to disconnect these 2 lines right here. The car has been sitting for a while, but I'm pretty sure there's still gonna be some fuel in it. Oh, all right, that's 1 out. Now let's get this other side out. Yeah, screw it. I just decided to cut this off. I'm not gonna deal with this. We need to trim it anyway, so it's whatever. And so this side slips over just like that, and screw in the hose clamp. That one's secured in. Yeah, so it looks like we've got a decent amount to trim. So hose will go, I'll cut to right here. Now I'll take our hose clamp, slip it over, and now I'm gonna tighten this down. There we go, guys. So that's on there pretty solidly. I'm just gonna go around and tighten down the hose clamps one more time. So the sensor is wired up right here, connects into the fuel line. Quick disconnects are on solidly. Fuel line is good. So the only thing left is getting this wired on right now. Jacob's coming over with a crimping tool for this so that we can power the gauge. But while we're waiting for him, I'll just put everything back because this all should be good. Let's hook everything back up and see what happens. So the sensor's in place right here. It's all wired up. We tucked the fuel line in. Jacob's helping me with the vent right now, and he came over with the crimping tool. Shout out, we got this in. And the gauge, if I power the car on, we're at E80, boys. So we decided against mounting it up here using that vent, just because I don't need to be constantly monitoring the heat content. So we're seeing if there's a way that we can mount it around this area or even inside of the cubby like most people do. I'm just glad the sensor works, all the wiring is right. We just got to find a neat place to mount it now.